there? You don't know anything at all about us!
You know, talking down to people isn't very nice.
It would have been better if we'd done this after you had a chance to get to know us a little more.
Greetings, Professor. Nothing to report. I'm Harry Potter.
The police won't be able to handle him, but it should be easy for me.
Celica, don't do this!
I'm not the guy she needs right now. What do you want me to do next, Orga?
Hand over the ring.
Don't you worry, Professor. I'll get it back.
Are you willing to join me?
Can't. I've got to go pump some iron.
Brace!
Did you find some more strays?
Don't worry. I'll protect you. Come on, let's go.
And all those voices still won't go away!
Hello, everyone. How are we this fine Sunday morning? I am well. I have slept a little bit. I have been working so hard, guys, on getting the garage on the other side of this wall ready for Board and Barrel tonight. And I'm crossing my fingers that everything's going to go according to plan. I think I've worked out most of the kinks at this point. And I'll have about 6.5 hours to finish doing that after this stream. I've also got a how-to video to put together in that time frame, though, so we'll see if I can get all of that done today. And then I need to start real work that I get paid to do, because I have a script to adapt in the next 2.5 weeks. For a feature, for a film, a movie. Anyway, how is everybody doing today? Can everybody see and hear me? Is my chat... The mic sounds odd. Mic sounds a bit fuzzy. Oh, that's interesting. Wonder why that would be. Let me hear it. See if it's at this point, or if it's... Oh, it is definitely at this point. Huh. Check, check. There we go. Fixed it. Cool. All right. Yeah, my chat froze on me for a second there. Sorry, guys. All right. I think we're good. Welcome to the 90s, baby. Yeah. All right. I think we're good now. I think we got our audio fixed. Audio problems situated, at least for the moment. Now fix my broken heart. Unless it just requires tacos, you could try. How's my day going? It's barely started. I should have gotten up a little earlier. I should have gone to sleep a little earlier so that I could have done that. But I'm here. I'm ready. Ready to play some NieR Replicant version 1.22 4744871139 ellipsis. We are revisiting this game after 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since the last time we played any of this game. Haha, funny. It's reading time. Oh, is it? Cool. Well, I have my Zip Fizz here, my powdered energy mixed with water. Hopefully that'll keep the vocal cords lubricated. So, we are headed into Route B this morning. We have been, we finished Route A 2 weeks ago. Last week I was out of town, so I didn't do any streaming last weekend. Yeah, when last we left our heroes, NieR and Yona had been reunited, and they lived happily ever after. Right? Just kidding. We're going back in time. Let's do it. Hey, whoa, what the what? Boop. There we go. Fixed it. All right. Off to the races. Hero. Yeah, good call, Carson 121. New things in the options are open. Like what, Rose Valise?
Whenever I interacted with Kaine, I was reminded about something from my past. Maybe my mind has been confusing her with my sister this whole time. Anyway...
Black t-shirts with this black blanket could cause my virtual green screen confusion. Figure it out. I don't want that. I don't want to see that. I'm trying to fix this. I'm sorry. Something like that. All right. The sound of rain filled the village. The steep cliffs that surrounded the area magnified sound, causing even the slightest drizzle to rattle like a thunderstorm. Thin wisps of smoke streamed from huts as the villagers huddled in their homes and waited out the rain. A single child, however, had braved the downpour and was now wandering slowly toward the wooden, hawk-shaped weather vane at the center of town. The wanderer reached the vane, which had existed for as long as any could remember, and stared. The child's face was simultaneously delicate and fierce, like a teacup that had survived a shipwreck. Those traits combined with pale white skin to give the face an almost sexless quality. If the beak turns east, I go home. If it stays west, then I... The child blinked. Rain slowly dripped down the young one's short hair and began its long descent to the ground. I'm gonna move over to the other side and sit over here. Which, now it's having issues with that side of the blanket. Come on. Come on. Well, this would be better. Sure. For right now, we'll go with that. Oh, come on. There we go. Come on. Come on! The cat wants out. We're off to a great start today. All right. The child felt a slight breeze and watched as the veins slowly creaked to life. Spinning this way and that for a moment, it finally settled with the beak pointing firmly toward the east. East? Really? Before the vein could move again, a jagged rock came spinning and tumbling through the air, striking home against the child's head. The force of the blow dropped the child to the ground, as a hail of stones began to fall all around. Oh no, they found me. A heartbreaking smile crept across the child's face as the stones continued their assault. Through the rain, the sound of multiple footsteps grew louder before a voice rang out. Yoo-hoo! Kaine! The voice belonged to Demo, worst of all the bullies in the area. As Kaine struggled to stand, a final stone came skittering through the mud and bounced against her foot. Blood oozed from a cut above her eye and blurred her vision, but she could make out the shapes of Demo and his usual gang of idiots. The boy seemed taken aback for a moment by Kaine's seeming indifference to the blood dripping from her face, but quickly regained his bravado.
What's up, freak? You like the rain? You like getting all wet? Or did you finally decide to run away from home?
Though she knew it was futile, Kaine turned to leave. Before she could get more than a few steps, the other children scrambled to surround her, cruelty burning in their eyes. Kaine knew those were not the only eyes on her. The tormentor's parents watched from the safety of their homes. She was attuned to this sensation. It was one she had experienced many times before. While some villagers simply turned a blind eye to the actions of their children, many encouraged it openly. In a society ruled by superstition and fear, Kaine was something to be hated, and if possible, destroyed.
I didn't say you could leave, freak.
Demo's words chewed at her like a worm through an apple.
Can't hurt me,
She lied to herself.
be strong, be brave. He can't hurt me. He can't hurt me. He can't hurt...
Oh, look, the little freak is gonna cry. What's wrong? Are you sad that everyone hates you and wants you dead?
Kaine prayed for the rain to flood down and carry her away from a world that seemed to have no place for her. But if there were gods, they chose to ignore her. As Demo crept ever closer, the clouds began to thin, and the rain slowed.
Even the weather hates me. I'm useless. A failure. I wish Demo's rock had taken my head off.
Kaine couldn't meet Demo's leering gaze. She lowered her eyes and stared at the muddy ground below. The bully moved forward until he was inches away. She could smell the scent of old meat on his breath. The boy grabbed Kaine's face with thick fingers and yanked it upward. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it open.
Show me.
No.
Did you just say no?
Demo grinned evilly.
You don't say no to me. No one says no to me.
Not even taking his attention from Kaine, he called to his cohorts.
Come on, guys. Let's give the freak what she deserves.
As soon as Demo finished, kicks and blows began to rain down upon Kaine. Demo paused, still grinning, as Kaine curled into a ball and tried to make the pain stop.
I don't get you, freak. What you acting like a girl for, huh? Everyone knows what you really are.
Kaine ignored the question, choosing instead to stare at the weather vane. It continued to point east, as if supremely confident about the future it had chosen for her.
Go home? Yeah, that's a funny joke for someone with dead parents and no home to go to.
Freak! Chanted the children.
Freak! Freak! Freak!
Kaine closed her eyes and listened to the rain, waiting for the pain to start again. As the clutching hands of the village children closed around her,
She bent her mind to the sound of the rain, letting it become her world entire. The rain fell, but the pain never came. Only when the laughter of her tormentors only when the laughter of her tormentors turned to terrified cries did she dare open a single blood-caked eye. Kaine was shocked to see Demo sprawled on the ground, holding his head and screaming in pain. She could see blood welling from spaces between his fat, twisted fingers. Oh my God. He's crying. He's actually crying. Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves, as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. When no savior emerged, they began an uneasy shuffle away from Kaine. But the young girl was the least of their concerns. Instead, their attention was rapt on the ancient woman standing a few feet away. After struggling for breath for a moment, she finally spoke in a voice thick with rage. Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my Kaine— oh wait, this is the grandma, huh?
Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my Kaine again, I'll do far worse than throw a rock. You can count on it.
The old woman crouched down and gently touched the hand Demo was using to cover the wound. Before he could think to protest, she ground her palm into the wound and twisted back and forth.
No!
He screamed, leaping to his feet.
Stop it! What are you doing? Quit whining. Ain't no one ever died from a scratch. You hit me with a rock, you stupid bitch! A big one! That thing could have killed me!
The old woman shrugged.
Death is the best cure for stupid.
Demo's face twisted with rage at her words. Locking his eyes on Kaine, he took a step backward and spat on the ground.
Get out! Leave this village! No one wants you here, either of you!
Seeing the old woman grab another stone, Demo and his companions turned tail and ran. As they fled, the old woman grabbed her side and barked out a single laugh.
Ha! Look at the fat boy go! Guess he's healthy enough to run from a fight!
The woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kaine. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it around the young girl's shoulders, then produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting at the blood on her forehead.
Oh, Kaine,
she said.
Why didn't you fight back? You're stronger than that lot.
The words of her grandmother stung Kaine, and she turned away. Don't be nice to me, she said. I don't deserve it. Nothing matters anymore. Her tears, held in check for so long, finally began to fall on the muddy ground below. Everyone hates me. They think I cause bad things to happen. They think I'm a freak. I wish I was dead. As Kaine's tears turned to sobs, she felt her grandmother's hands on her shoulders. Despite her advanced age and diminutive size, she was a woman of surprising strength, and Kaine found herself unable to turn away.
Don't talk like that, girl. It's a river wide and deep that flows between the realms of this world and the next, and it grants no mercy to any that attempt the crossing. You got a duty to fight until your last breath. Understand?
The old woman tightened her grip and tried to still the tremor in her voice.
You know the pain of losing someone close to you, Kaine. You know because you survived it.
As the words hit home, Kaine was struck by the force of her love for the old woman. As a young child, she didn't even know of her grandmother. But when her parents died, the woman quickly accepted her as her own. Grandma, as Kaine called her, was cunning, vulgar, and quick to violence, and their first few years together had not been easy. But with each year that passed, Kaine and her grandmother had grown closer. However, it was only now, sitting in the mud with tears and blood caking her face, that Kaine truly understood the depths of her affection. Here was a woman who had seen hard times, who had seen death, who had fought through all these things and somehow emerged on the other side. If anyone could understand Kaine's pain and loneliness, it was her.
Do I make you sick, Grandma?
Course not! Don't be an ass!
Kaine drew her grandmother's moth-eaten shawl around her body and shuddered.
My body. It's not normal. If I was normal, then Mom and Dad wouldn't.
Hush!
Interrupted Grandma.
I'll not hear another word of this nonsense. You're my granddaughter, and I love you. And if folks have a problem with that, they can just go to hell.
With that, the old woman reached out and placed a wreath of dried flowers in Kaine's hair. The skill it took to bend the flowers without breaking the stems or losing a single petal was remarkable. And the beauty of it made Kaine want to cry all over again.
Oh my gosh. These are lunar tears. Grandma, you made this for me?
Lunar tears were legendary flowers. Most people could live their entire lives without ever seeing one. And yet, her grandmother had somehow collected a dozen or more. Kaine reached up and touched the wreath, as if she couldn't believe it was real.
Where did you find these?
Just stumbled on them while I was out doing the shopping.
The old woman turned away as she spoke, leading Kaine to suspect that the search had been more difficult than she was letting on. The pains she took to construct the ornament, let alone track down the flowers used in its construction, made Kaine's heart hurt. She reached up and gently adjusted the wreath, admiring the way it felt between her fingers.
Didn't quite turn out right,
said her grandmother as she squinted at it.
These old hands have trouble with delicate work, but it sure looks good on a pretty girl like you.
Kaine blushed and turned away.
You think I'm pretty?
Course you are! What a fool thing to say!
Thank you, Grandma.
Her grandmother smiled.
We're gonna be fine, you and me,
she said.
Long as we got each other, we'll be just fine.
Kaine took her grandmother's hand in hers, and the two of them struggled to their feet. As they began the long walk home, Kaine gripped the hand with all her might, as if trying to stop smoke from drifting away on the wind. The rain had stopped. Kaine stood beneath the weather vane, watching it spin in lazy circles, no longer caring about the direction it faced when it stopped.
I don't need to escape. I have a home now. Grandma loves me. And that's enough. Even if it's us against the world.
Kaine let her gaze drift up past the vein and into the cloudy sky. The last faint hints of a rainbow were slowly fading. As she turned and headed for home, the light scattered into a million particles and vanished, seemingly taken away on the breeze. Kaine's dreams, daily life. In the distance, Kaine heard the steady sounds of an axe striking wood. The noise had a purposeful quality to it, as if she was hearing a master woodsman go about his work. The firewood being produced, however, was as far from a work of art as could be. Pieces of every shape and size were being flung about a barren yard with wild abandon. Anyone trying to stack such wood would probably die of frustration before the job was through.
Stupid piece of shit axe!
Oh, it's Grandma.
Stupid piece of shit axe!
Kaine's grandmother flailed away with the axe, filling the air with both splinters of wood and words that would make the most hardened sailor blush. "Grandma!" called Kaine.
That you, Kaine?
Yelled the old woman, taking her eyes off the wood for a moment.
Don't get too close or I may take your goddamn foot off by mistake.
She brought the axe down on a piece of wood, sending chips flying in every direction. One spun past Kaine close enough for her to hear the whistle, at which point she decided to step back. Once she'd scuttled to a safe distance, she cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, "Grandma! Do you need help? I can get you water or lunch or a new axe or something?" The axe, poised to strike another wobbly blow, paused in midair. The old woman considered her granddaughter's offer for a moment, then smiled.
Tell you what, since I'm doing such a piss-poor job of chopping, why don't you come here and take over so I can go get the water? Shades have been restless lately, and I don't want you running into one of them bastards.
Relinquishing the axe, her grandmother picked up a long pole with wooden buckets on either end. Gathering water was by far the most difficult of the two jobs, but Kaine knew better than to complain. Once Grandma's mind was set, there was no changing it. Kaine did her best to help with chores, but Grandma took every task that required travel to the village. Though she had a long list of plausible excuses, Kaine knew the real reason. She didn't want her granddaughter to be taunted and harassed by the villagers. Once Kaine moved in, Grandma decided to take up residence a good distance from the area. Out of sight, out of mind seemed to be the best policy when it came to the villagers and her granddaughter. And rare were the days when any but the two of them could be found on the rocky acre of land they called home. Kaine enjoyed the solitude, but harbored a secret resentment that her grandmother was forced to spend her golden years in such a place. After watching her grandmother leave, Kaine turned her attention to the task at hand. She had never chopped wood before in her life, and soon discovered why the old woman hated the chore. Swing after swing of the axe produced only a tiny crack in the wood, and when she finally managed to connect with a solid stroke, the tool embedded itself in the log and refused to budge. Frustrated, Kaine swung the axe around her head and threw it, log and all, across the yard.
Damn it! Crap!
She suddenly understood the joy her grandmother felt in a good curse. Happier now, she picked up the axe, forced it from the wood, and resumed chopping. She had a natural skill with a blade, but the task was challenging, and blisters soon began to form on her small, pink hands. "This is tough. and my logs are all weird sizes. Spitting on her palms and ignoring the pain, Kaine redoubled her efforts. Just as she was developing a rhythm, Grandma returned from the village. Setting down her buckets with a small sigh, she took one look at the logs, coughed out a wheezy laugh.
Pretty clumsy, girl. You better practice if you...
Her grandmother suddenly collapsed to her knees, causing one of the buckets to wobble precariously. Eyes wide, Kaine dropped the axe and ran to her grandmother's side. "Grandma!" The old woman shook her head and pointed a trembling finger at the bucket.
Get the bucket. Can't let it spill.
Kaine steadied the bucket with a foot as she knelt by her grandmother. A small bit of water sloshed over the side and made a new home in the hem of her dress, but Kaine didn't notice. "Grandma? Grandma, what's happening?" Crazed with panic, she grabbed her grandmother by the shoulders and shook. After a moment, the woman lifted her arms and batted Kaine away.
Stop that! Just stop!
She cried, breathing heavily.
It ain't like I'm dying. Just tired from the trip is all.
Kaine desperately wanted to believe her, but one look at the old woman's shaking hands and worn face told her more than words ever could. Her grandmother had lived a long, hard life, and it seemed the bill was finally coming due. The time when her grandmother watched over Kaine was ending. Sooner than either of them had feared, the positions would be reversed. The next morning, Kaine came to the side of her grandmother's bed and took her wrinkled hand. "Grandma, you're sick, and you need medicine. I'm going to the village." The old woman shook her head and tried to rise, but Kaine gently pushed her down. "It's all right," she said. "I'll be fine." Her grandmother fixed her with a gaze that could melt steel. After what seemed an eternity, she finally lowered her eyes and sighed.
Well, I don't like it, goddammit. I guess I should quit being so stubborn and let you grow up.
The old woman watched as Kaine strapped on her boots and made her way down the road to the village. Hours later, as an unseen sun made its way across a dark and rainy sky, she was still watching. Kaine moved at a brisk pace, checking her pockets every few minutes to make sure the money her grandmother gave her was still there. Every noise caused her head Every noise caused her to spin on her heels, making sure she wasn't being stalked by a shade, or worse, Demo and his gang. But she encountered neither tormentors nor shades, and Kaine finally found herself at the entrance to the village. The few adults she could see glanced sideways at her, then muttered to each other behind raised hands before slinking away into the shadows. Her heart racing, Kaine took a series of rapid, shallow breaths and tried to calm herself. "I have to prove myself. I have to help Grandma. I have to be strong." She chanted those words to herself over and over as she slowly made her way. Finally, her eyes settled on a rotund older woman who was angrily waving her arms in the air and telling anyone who would listen exactly what she thought of Kaine's presence. "Hey, lady," said Kaine with a bravado she did not feel. "Where's the apothecary?" The woman's flabby cheeks shook in bewildered anger.
How dare this thing speak to me?
They seemed to say, but Kaine saw that her eyes held a different emotion. Fear. "Yeah, we're both scared, lady. Trust me on this one." "Which way?" Kaine repeated. The woman pointed at a small building to her right before hitching up her dress and stumbling off in the other direction. Kaine cringed, expecting a stone to come flying from the assembled crowd, but none came. Her mind was filled with a strange sense of pride as she made her way to the apothecary. But the new emotion had little time to take root, for as soon as she opened the door, she noticed a familiar customer at the counter. It was Demo. He'd clearly been sent here on some kind of family errand, because his gang of followers was nowhere to be found.
Oh my god, he sputtered. Oh my god, he sputtered. I mean, what are you doing here, freak? What are you doing here, freak? The insult was delivered without force, and Kaine happily ignored it. Cold reading skills, especially when you don't know what text is coming next. Stretching on tiptoes to see over the counter, she asked the shopkeeper for the medication. Wheels are falling off this bus right now. Barked Demo. That old bitch finally keel over? Go to hell, Demo. The boy's eyes grew so wide they seemed ready to fall out of his head. But before he could let fly a comeback, or worse, a punch, the apothecary told them to knock it off before he kicked them out of the store. Demo slunk out of the shop, cursing Kaine under his breath. Once he was gone, she allowed herself to breathe once more, taking a brief tour of the shop while the owner prepared her medication. Countless tiny bottles filled the cramped store, each with a label written in some indecipherable language. An ocean of aromas assaulted her nose, creating a scent that was exotic, but not altogether unpleasant. Seeing such a variety of supplies gave Kaine a sense of peace. Surely, in a world so vast, there would be a place that she could call home. On the far wall, behind the counter, rested a portrait of a stunning young girl. The picture had once contained bright, vibrant colors, but time had worked its cruel magic, and they were beginning to fade. The beauty of the work, however, remained undiminished.
You like that picture?
Kaine turned to find the apothecary with a small vial of medicine in his hand. His eyes were gentle but sad, and they seemed to stare through her and into nothing as he spoke.
That's my daughter. Sketched it when she was just a little girl. She's been dead a long time now.
Kaine didn't know how to respond. She just stared at the portrait, and tried to come up with the right words.
Pictures are wonderful things,
Continued the shopkeeper.
They let the ones closest to you live on forever.
He shook his head slightly, then looked down at Kaine and smiled. Handing her the medicine, he reached into his sizable green apron and produced a handful of old wax crayons.
You should have these. No one left that I wish to draw.
Kaine took an instinctive step back, causing the shopkeeper's face to darken.
Yes, I've heard the rumors about you,
He said.
It's a small village. Word travels quickly. Between you and me, I'm not sure which of them to believe. But I also don't think they matter much. Know your grandmother, Callie. Callie. We'll go with Callie. I think the way she was driven out of this town is just deplorable.
Grandma's name is Callie? Callie? That's what we settled on? No, who cares? Thought Kaine suddenly. She was still mulling this new fact over in her mind as she reached out and gently took the crayons from the apothecary's hands.
Your grandmother's an old friend of mine.
He said. as Kaine scooted away yet again.
And I owe her much. I wager she would like it if you drew a picture of her. Yes. I think she would like that very much.
Kaine murmured a quiet agreement, but inside her heart was bursting. Never before had a villager treated her with anything but complete contempt. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible step, but it was a step nonetheless. And with enough tiny steps, she might one day discover the rest of the world. When Kaine returned home, she found her grandmother asleep in her bed. Her feet were blackened and raw, even bleeding a bit in places, leading Kaine to think that she had been pacing around the room until exhaustion finally caught up with her. She placed the medicine by her grandmother's pillow and turned to leave, found the old woman's hand clasped around her arm.
Back already, are you?
Asked her grandmother with a yawn.
Come here. Let me have a look at you.
Grandma sat up and examined Kaine from head to toe. Finally satisfied that nothing terrible had befallen her grandchild, she leaned back and allowed herself to relax.
Well, how was it?